and welcome to another video. So this video is gonna have a lot in it because I haven't filmed in like a wicked long time and I want to post a video. So recently my life's been pretty hectic. Like I recently just bought a house and we're going through all of the paperwork that goes with that, and I'm trying to self-teach myself a new skill for work. I'm getting married at the end of May and I'm moving sometime around the same time. Reading's not really a priority for me right now. I mean, I'm still doing it, I'm still enjoying it, but I'm reading like, 30 pages a day, so it's kind of hard to get these videos out right now. So this video is going to be a March reading wrap up, April TBR, and at the end I'll show you how I set up April for my bullet journals because I've already done that. So starting with my March reading wrap up. So this month I read 12 books, 8 of those were for work and 4 I just did on my own time. If you don't know, I'm an audiobook proofreader, so I read tons of books. And this month I had some longer and more like research heavy books that I had to do. So I didn't really get through as many books as I would have liked to. And that ended up being 3,450 pages. So pretty good. That's pretty average for me. I'm not going to go in depth and tell you about every single book I read because that's just going to take way too long. And some of these, like, I just mindlessly went through because I had to do them for work. Like this one, Sports Psychology for Dummies, 2nd edition. I was not paying attention to that. So that was the first book I read, and then I read Dangerous Night by Elizabeth Johns, and that was just a historical romance. It's pretty average. I ended up giving it 3 stars. I'm not going to go in depth with that. And then I read Lake's Edge by Lyndall Clipstone. I read this for one of my mystery TBR books, so I'll have that video linked above. So this is a YA fantasy about magic, and it's kind of takes place in like a different time era than ours. I'm guessing it's like, pre-electricity, but it's not exactly ever clarified what the time period is. And this is also the first book of the duology, and I will not be continuing the series. I will not be reading the second one. I almost DNF'd this one. I ended up giving it 2 stars just because I reserved my 1 stars for like really offensive books. This is one of those books where it's like, take my opinion on this one with a grain of salt because tons and tons and tons of people on Goodreads absolutely loved this. It just wasn't for me. I was not the target audience. Oh, so then I read a terrible lit RPG sci-fi fantasy nonsense book called The Spire of Blood, a cultivation gamelit adventure. This was book 7 in a series by Marvin Whiteknight. That's totally an alias. This book, 2 stars, was not good. I did not enjoy it at all. I don't know what was even going on in the story because I was so distracted by how like the main character was just so powerful and strong and intelligent and way stronger and more intelligent than everybody else in the land, and it was just way too much for me. So then I read The Roughest Draft by Austin Sigmund Broca and Ebony Wibberley. I don't know if I said those right. I also did a video for this one, so that one will also be linked. This is an enemies to lovers where it's kind of debatable if it's second chance or not. It really depends on how you read the book. I absolutely love this book. I tabbed it all up. I gave it 4 stars. There were just little things that prevented me from giving it 5 stars. I explain all of that in the video where I read the whole book. But yeah, this one, it was really enjoyable. I had a fun time reading it. I suggest this to a lot of people. This is kind of more complex of a writing. Like usually with romances, they're kind of like silly and unbelievable. And while this had its moments of being unbelievable, the writing was very layered and complex, as both of the characters are writers, and so they would write to each other scenes when they mean something else and have arguments in their books, and they would say things that have like 2-3 degrees of complexity and different meanings and stuff. It was a fun time. I really highly suggest this one. So then I read the book Witness to Passion by Nema Simone. I ended up giving this one 2 stars. Honestly, I don't even remember what this book is about. I have like a whole little paragraph of what this book was about, and I don't remember. Oh, so this was a romance about this guy who wanted to date his like best friend's little sister, and just kind of what with that, and I hated it. Like it was so bad. Like it was one of those romances where literally everything somebody does is sexualized. Like somebody's making scrambled eggs, sexy. Like somebody is just sitting on the couch drinking a glass of wine, sexy. And I couldn't handle that because that is not real life at all. I mean, it's a short one. It's 219 pages. I did not have a fun time reading it. So then I read The Elephant and the Mouse, Moving Beyond the Illusion of Inclusion to Create a Truly Diverse and Equitable Workplace by Laura Liswood. This one I had to read for work, and it was a business book. Like there's not really much I can go on with that besides it's talking about how in the workplace there's different personalities of people. So there's going to be the elephant who is loud and in charge and kind of just like big, like their presence is big. and people know when the person is in the room and stuff. And then it's about the mouse who like is quieter and takes up less space, like their presence is just smaller. They kind of get overlooked. And the book is about trying to take these two personalities and how to draw out their strengths so that they can work together in a workplace and both of their ideas are heard and nobody's overshadowed. It had a lot of interesting concepts and a lot of things that I thought were kind of important and I wish are in a lot more workplaces than are. I ended up giving it 3 stars though, because it wasn't like any kind of breakthrough ideas. Like there was important ideas, but not really any ways on how to carry it out. There was no kind of advice with it. It was just kind of like an observation. Okay, so then I read Heartstopper Volume 3. I am trying to make my way through all of the Heartstopper volumes, and there's 4 out there right now. So these are written by Alice Oseman. Book number 3, I ended up giving it 5 stars. I loved it. I'm really looking forward to reading the next one. Oh, so then I read The Girl from the Sea by Molly Knox Ostertag. So this is a YA fantasy graphic novel about this girl who has kind of like a coming out story, and she falls in love with a what's it called? A selkie. So not a mermaid. It's more of like, I don't really know how to explain a selkie, but it's kind of like a magical creature that is a human and wears a seal's skin. So when they're in the water and they have the seal skin on, they are a seal. Like they look like a seal and all this stuff, but then they can come onto land and take off the seal skin and they are human. I don't know, they're really interesting creatures, and I kind of read it because I thought it was going to be a mermaid book, but it was just as enjoyable. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. It was such a fun time. I really highly enjoy reading it. So then I read 2 war books. I'm not going to talk about them. I felt like I slept through those books. I didn't really read them. I have a hard time counting those books, but I struggled through and I was very frustrated reading those books, so I'm going to count them in my statistics, but I'm not going to talk about them here. And the last book I read was The Crown by Samantha Whiskey. This book was so fun and it was so silly and it was so just... I loved it. Ended up giving this one 4 stars. So this is a romance about this girl who's a writer and this guy who is a prince, and his father just died and he has to become king of the land. And in this world, in order for him to become king, he has to be married, and he has to marry somebody of noble birth. So, I mean, if you've read a bunch of romances, you kind of know where this is going. So the prince rebels. He does not want to marry the person that he's betrothed to. Nobody was surprised. So this is also the first book in the series, and I believe the second one is more of a companion novel, so you don't really get a continuation of this story. I might read the second one anyways, just because the first one was such a fun time and I enjoyed the writing, and like the rules of the world were just silly and enjoyable. So I think I would have a fun time reading the second one. Okay, so on to the books I want to read for April. So I do have 2 separate TBRs because I'm going to be participating in the Spring Fling-O-Ween that's happening at the end of April. It's just like a Halloween readathon that's being hosted by Olivia Reads a Latte and Gabby Reads, I think. Like, I'll have their videos linked. But first, my overall April TBR is pretty loose because, like I said, life is really busy right now and I don't expect to be able to get through tons of books. So I only have a couple, and I have like if I read all these, then let's try to get to this one book. So the first one is The Drawing of the Three by Stephen King. This is the second book in the Dark Tower series, and I am trying to read a bunch of the Dark Tower series books. I actually have my own series where I'm reading all of them in order and giving them little reviews. This is just the next one in the series. This one takes place directly after The Gunslinger, and like I'm not too sure what it's about. I did start reading it already, so I'm on page 74. And so far, this one is way more interesting than Gunslinger. I'm very excited to get to this. So then I have The Lightning Thief, which is a Percy Jackson book written by Rick Riordan. I've read all of the Percy Jackson books before, but my fiance is listening to this podcast. I don't remember the name of the podcast. It was like Potterless, but he's doing The Lightning Thief now, so I don't know if he changed the name of the podcast. Anyways, it's basically this guy who is reading the Percy Jackson books for the first time as an adult. Like, he's never seen the movies or anything, I don't think, and he's never read the books, so he's reading them as an adult and kind of chapter by chapter goes through in his podcast and talks about it. And it's actually a really cool podcast. Like, if I can find it, I'll link it. But anyways, so because my fiance is listening to these podcasts, he wants me to kind of reread the books so that we could talk about it. And like, I have no problem with that. I love the Percy Jackson books. So I'm currently on the first one. I've read maybe like 10% of it. I will be doing a video for that too, so keep an eye out. Next is Heartstopper Volume 4, also by Alice Oseman. I just got this one from the library. But yeah, highly looking forward to continuing off this series. I don't know if there's going to be a volume 5. Like, let me know in the comments if you like have any information on that. So those are the real like top 3 books I really want to get to this month. But if I finish those and I have more time, then I want to read The Fear by Natasha Preston. I'm really looking forward to this. This is her newest release, and I'm just like super excited to read it. Like, I love Natasha Preston books. She's definitely one of my favorite authors, and this is just a thriller. Don't really know what it's about, but her thrillers are just usually teenage YA murder mysteries. And her books don't usually have happy endings now that I think about it. Like, some of them do, but like a ton of them don't. So I'm interested to see where this one is going. Like, actually, The Lake. This one was like the first one of hers that had a super not happy ending. Well, that at least that I read of, and I noticed it, and I really enjoyed this book for the non-happy ending, so I suggest this one. I also love this one because one of the characters' name is Kayla, and I don't see that often in a book, so I loved it. Okay, so then for my spring Fling-O-Ween TBR, I have these 2 books. So the prompts are read a book with pink or yellow on the cover. Both of them have pink and yellow on the cover, so there goes that. And then the second prompt is read a backlist thriller or horror book. I believe this is a backlist because it came out in 2018. When I saw it came out in 2018, I was like, oh, it's only 2 years ago, but it's actually 2022 right now. So it came out 4 years ago. So this is Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. I've had this on my TBR for a wicked long time, and this is on my list of books I really want to get to in 2022. So I'm very excited to get to this. This is a thriller about this girl who goes missing, and 10 years later, her mom is dating this guy, and the guy introduces her to his daughters, and one of his daughters looks exactly like her daughter that went missing. I'm excited. So I do plan on using this book for both prompts because I don't want to overwhelm myself, and it's only like 4 days long, and I'm not really the fastest of readers. But if I do end up finishing it, then I'm gonna go for this one, which is A Million Things by Emily Spur. This is a thriller fiction contemporary. I'm not sure if it's contemporary fiction or if it's kind of a thriller, but it's about this girl who's like, I think she's 10 years old. Her mother is kind of like not the most reliable, and her mother actually ends up missing. Like, she just disappears, and it's about this 10-year-old who's trying to survive for like the 50 days I think her mom is gone. I'm just very interested in this book. I picked it up at a used bookstore. Yeah, just excited to read it. So that is all of the books that I have for my like March wrap up, April TBR. Like, those are all the books I want to talk about. So now I'll just show you how I set up April in my bullet journals. So sorry the lighting is kind of terrible. I really did not want to get a whole like setup, and that's 100% the reason why I did not film setting these up in the first place. So we'll just start with my reading journal. So I'm going with kind of an Easter bunny theme here. I printed out some pictures and kind of layered them. And then I just drew in pencil a bunny and April and some flowers and an Easter egg. And I really just like the contrast of the printed out papers and the pencil. So this is my title page. And then this is my TBR, where I kind of still have the same contrast. I have the paper and the printout pictures with my pencil, and I have my flowers and some more Easter eggs. I just really love how this came out. And then this page is for the spring Fling-O-Ween, and I wanted this to be kind of spooky and have some Halloween vibes while also still having spring Easter vibes. So I tried to combine the colors as best as I could, like having some bats but also some cute little bunnies. I really love how this came out. I keep looking at it. I just love it. Those are the only spreads. After this, I just start with my book notes. This is the book I'm currently reading for work, and I love it. So then for my life journal, I'm kind of keeping the same theme here where I have marker, but then with tons of pencil drawings around it. I just have this Easter egg with a cute little bunny and flowers all around it, and then like this washi tape as my border. Originally I penciled it and I wanted to, draw over it with a pen or something, but I love how it came out with pencil, and I'm loving the contrast and just kind of how soft it looks with the pencil, so I think I'm just gonna leave it. So then the next page is my calendar. Usually I've been doing a calendar like this, where I kind of have all the days down. I write in my events that I want to do, and then in here I have for my habits. But here it's just a bigger calendar with the squares, and I have this pink line to separate, so you can kind of see here and here is where I put my habits that I'm listing on this side. I have my overall to-do list of things I want to do for the month, and then some more cute little doodles. So moving on, I have my notes page, which is just the same thing, just some marker and some flower doodles. And then for my weekly setup, it's pretty similar to weekly setups I've been doing before. I just really like this layout. It's really working for me. Yeah, and that's all I set up. I didn't set up the rest of the weeks. I do my weeks kind of like a couple days before that week is going to start, just because I never know if I'm going to need a page for something else. Kind of like here, how I needed something to keep me on track for a productive weekend. But yeah, so those are my journals. Yeah, that's gonna be it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!